everyone. Welcome back to another episode of A Second Chance Stories of Young Offenders. We're your hosts, Calista Lynn
and Lakshya Keshri, and today we have an incredible guest joining us. Shelly Gutensohn, a passionate mental health advocate, founded the Restorative Therapy Project. With the experience in correctional facilities and a commitment to underserved communities, she brings personalized mental health support to those who need it the most.
Hi, Shelly. So I guess we just wanted to first thank you for coming onto our podcast. We are so excited to hear from you today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So, Shelly, as a mental health therapist and clinical director at Reset Summer Camp, you play a vital role in tailoring therapy to individual needs. So how do you approach incorporating so many different types of therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, faith-based approaches? I know you're Christian, and using all of this to address specific mental health challenges faced by your clients. Also, can you give us like a short background about yourself before you answer that question?
Sure. Yes. I'm Shelly. I'm Shelly, and I started out working as a special education teacher, and then I got my license as a marriage and family therapist, and I'm in California. And so I worked for several years full-time in Los Angeles County jails and probation departments, different, community locations. And then in, I think 2020, it was during COVID, was when I broke off on my own and I started my private practice, Restorative Therapy Project. And so now I contract with different organizations to be able to bring those services to people that need them. Oh, and then Reset Summer Camp, because I have two very different specialties when it comes to mental health. So working with people who are either currently or formerly incarcerated, and then also working with teenagers who suffer with technology addiction. And yeah, and it's every summer we have a camp in Santa Barbara, California. And actually this summer, we're going to have a location in Canada too. And it's a 4-week camp for teenagers. And we go through a detox and we incorporate clinical aspects, life skills, and then some fun summer camp activities.
Thank you for sharing that. That's intriguing. I just want to ask, like, super randomly, is that like a common kind of camp across the US, or is that more like you don't see that very often?
No, we started Reset I believe 6 years ago now, and we're really kind of the first of its kind. And I'm surprised that there's not more at this point, because it is a very, very common problem. And we take a maximum of 24 campers every summer is what we're able to take on. And every year we do also have to turn away some potential campers because we're not able to best serve them in our environment. And
yeah, that's understandable. Yeah,
we would refer them on. There is one other program that's called Restart, and they're a little more like a longer term, more comprehensive program.
Super cool. Love that.
Thank you.
So based on my knowledge, the Restorative Therapy Project aims to promote accessibility and awareness about mental health matters in marginalized communities.
Yes.
So could you share a specific instance where the telehealth technologies employed by the project have made a significant impact on an individual or community that might not have had easy access to mental health services?
Well, most facilities in California and also in other states are kind of located in the middle of nowhere. And so it's very difficult for them to have a full on-site mental health team. And I've seen, companies offer bonuses and moving incentives and all kinds of stuff, to get people to come and work there. But it doesn't really seem to work. So just recently, I'm actually seeing more and more facilities coming around to the idea of teletherapy. So right now I work with a residential placement, and it's for teenagers, an alternative to juvenile hall. And it's a really nice campus, several acres. They have some really great programming going on there, and it is located on a desolate mountaintop in Northern California, where, I'm talking like they have like little houses and cabins for staff to stay up there when they're not able, and when the roads are not accessible, due to weather or whatnot. So with teletherapy, I'm able to see them every week for sessions. And then I'm also able to Zoom in their families and have family sessions. And I've never worked in any kind of correctional environment where family therapy was even an option. So we're moving in the right direction with that.
This is also another random question, but this seems really interesting, and I've never heard of this teletherapy before researching about you.
Yeah,
And
I
I
was
was
gonna ask the
wondering
same
how many.
question. Yeah. Sorry, you can go ahead, Akshara.
Yeah. So I was wondering how many people you've worked with in total and how many people are actually at the camp. And is there any way we can personally spread the word?
And also, could you explain more about teletherapy and what that entails for anyone who
Oh, yeah, of course, that too.
yeah.
Of course. Yeah. So teletherapy is therapy that is conducted over Zoom. You can also do, there's other platforms, as long as it's HIPAA compliant, it's fine, but I use Zoom. And so, the client and I we create a Zoom link, and, we use that to meet every week. So it's just like, normal therapy, except we're each in our own homes or place of business.
Like virtual therapy.
Yeah, it's virtual therapy. Before COVID, it was very rare. It was very rare, and it wasn't really, looked at as like a good thing. And then, once COVID happened, and that's what we had to do,
Yeah.
people started to realize that, not only does
Mm-hmm.
it work, but it also makes therapy more accessible to people.
Mm-hmm.
Do
Yeah.
you think teletherapy is more effective than therapy in person?
No, I mean, I think really it depends on the person. Um, Adults, I think typically do better with teletherapy than teenagers do, generally speaking. But I have several teenagers that I work with over teletherapy. And so it really just kind of depends on their level of motivation, their ability to focus. Um, are they going to show up? So it really does depend on the person. Some clients I've had to say, this isn't working. So either we meet in person if we can, if we're close enough, or I'm going to help you find a therapist that's close to where you are, because I think that's going to be more effective for you.
So I'm assuming that you're using a lot of different tech and you're incorporating a lot of different types of tech. I assume stuff like AI. I assume AI, telehealth, and all of that put together. But given your experience contracting with other
Yeah.
organizations, I would say,
I can read her
for
mind.
services for services within the facilities of the Cali Department of Corrections, what strategies do you employ specifically, not only telehealth, but to provide effective mental health support within the criminal justice system, considering the really unique challenges faced by these incarcerated people? I mean, telehealth is one of them, but do you have anything else?
So, right, like telehealth strategies, or just kind of mental health specific?
Anything, not just telehealth.
Okay. Yeah, I approach working with clients in corrections the same as I do, my clients that are not in corrections. So, everyone has a story. Everyone, has family, they have goals, they have disappointments. And so I really just go into it just wanting to get to know about them. outside of, a mental health assessment form. I don't like to just check boxes. I want to get to know what they're willing to tell me. And I let them know that therapy is for them and what they want it for. I don't put a lot of pressure on them, especially in the beginning. So, if you want to go back and address the past, we can do that. If you don't want to do that and you want to focus on the future because, maybe the past is too much, or they see more value just in, planning for what comes next, we do that. And it's not that black and white. There's a lot of gray area in between, but I let them pick where we start so that they can feel more in control of the process and be able to build trust in me. I don't expect them to trust me right away because I know, a lot of them are like, oh, just another person coming to talk to me. So just wanting to really, lay the foundation that I'm a safe space.
So
So
you,
beautiful.
oh, sorry, what?
I was just saying that's so beautifully said, and it's just so nice to hear
I was
that.
literally gonna say the same thing.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that you work in the field of therapy in correctional facilities and special education services. So I'm just curious, how does the Restorative Therapy Project specifically address the mental health needs of individuals who have interacted with the criminal justice system, and how do you ensure a more personalized approach?
Because each person requires something different,
That's what I'm
Each
saying.
person committed a different crime that
Has
requires a
different
different amount of
experiences.
therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
hmm
Yeah. Well, I learned very quickly in my career that in a jail or a prison, word travels fast, and people don't want to be associated with talking to the therapist. So it can have environmental implications, that are not good ones.
That's
So
so sad. Yeah.
yeah, so I tell them just, say that I'm like a case manager. If any of their peers ask, you don't have to give any details. There is some kind of mental health offered in nearly all facilities at this point, but understanding that it is not always an appropriate service. So I've worked for a company before that was mental health for county jail, and they really didn't want us sitting down and talking to people in depth because it takes too much time. So just follow a script of questions, and then the psychiatrist can come in and give pills. And I couldn't do that.
Oh
So
my God.
I
Oh my
didn't.
God. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I
It's
left
just
it
like,
for, no, I know it's, and it is very sad that is actually the way mental health in most county jails run. And
I feel
so,
like that's just mental. Sorry to cut you off. I just feel like
no,
that's just mental health. A lot of people, when they think of therapy, they think of pills. I know my parents, for example, are skeptical of therapy and if it's just really that effective, but I know for a fact it is. And so you can continue, but I'm just saying that the stigma needs to break on this as well.
yes, absolutely. And I've actually noticed that the stigma with the younger ones that I work with, the guys at the residential placement, they don't really have that same stigma. And almost every client that I've had there has had mental health services in one form or another since the time that they were kids, like a young age. So, that's encouraging in the sense that it's been normalized to them. And, but there's a lot of work, still to be done. And I see it more in, the older generations that kind of still typically think that therapy is for, crazy people. So I'm like, everybody could use a therapist. Therapists have therapists, it's like, it's just nice to have somebody outside of your regular environment, that you can talk to. They're not biased in, to anyone in your life, and they can give that third party observer, point of view.
Do you think
I
mental health? Oh, sorry.
no,
No, I
continue.
was gonna say they can help you think about things in a different way, and
Yeah.
that's
Like,
hugely.
do you think mental health in like these correctional facilities, do you think they're overlooked a lot?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you know,
That's
and one of
sad.
the things that they often have in prison too is peer-led mental health groups, which excludes a whole lot of people if you're not the same race or the same affiliation or the same a lot of things, you know, as the peer
Mm.
who's leading the group. So, so as a provider, I have to be careful what I'm encouraging people to seek out, because if it's not the right thing, it can really turn them away from mental health altogether.
That's that's so sad to hear. We, or at least Coast is still part of it as well. We both do a program called Peer Diversion Court, and there we meet respondents or defendants, juveniles, but really they call them respondents, but they commit crimes and we meet them and we do a hearing for them. We act as their quote unquote lawyers or advocates. It's very loosely defined because there's a small jury made of previous respondents. Anyways, point is, recently I did a case on a kid, and I can tell that on the day of his interview, he was so stressed out. He didn't want to be there. I can tell he was really affected, and it wasn't even that big of a crime. So I can't imagine the guilt these kids must be feeling for
Oh,
huge crimes, you know. But I know that's the mission of the Restorative Therapy Project, and I know they're there to break stigma. But specifically, can you talk more about stigma associated with mental health in marginalized communities and how and encourages how to seek help for people considering both social and economic barriers?
yeah. 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 No, a big focus for me right now is trying to find ways to make mental health more accessible. You know, once people are released and re-entering their communities, because also sadly, what I've learned is, you know, everyone wants to talk about mental health, but nobody wants to actually fund it. And
Mm,
insurance can be very difficult to navigate for both the client and the provider. So it's frustrating, you know, it is. And it just seems like a lot of talk and no action. But, you know, I've been trying to get creative and have been able to partner with some really great organizations, nonprofits, and community colleges to run virtual workshops on just themes and resources that are specific to the population. So I've done several workshops on redefining identity and building resilience, looking at what meaningful occupation means, and yeah, just hoping that anyone that comes and participates in those workshops will be able to take something helpful away from it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's just really sad that this is such an issue in like a lot of other fields in society as well.
mm-hmm.
So that's really unfortunate. But moving on to a happier topic. Um, in your role at Reset Summer Camp, I know you integrate therapeutic approaches like meditation and relaxation techniques into campers' daily lives, which is super interesting, by the way. Like, I would totally try that out. But could you share a
Me
success
too.
story? Yeah. Could you share a success story or impactful moment where you've witnessed these practices making a big difference in a camper's mental well-being?
Yeah. You know, I think that it looks, again, like kind of looks different depending on the person. You know, question that we get about camp often is, does this work? Just in general, you know,
Mm.
is camp a-"
Yeah.
and it's like, well, you know, it depends on the person, depends on where they're starting out. You know, the success will look different for everybody. You know, so as I mentioned, our campers go through a detox when they come to us. And, you know, it kind of sounds funny, like when I talk to people about it, but the addiction is real. So their dopamine, their cortisol, their everything is just out of whack.
Mm.
Most
Wait, so there's people who think it's fake, like that
oh
they're
yeah.
faking it?
Oh
How
yeah.
so?
Well, no, many people don't believe that this is a real issue. You know, like, oh, well, if you're playing too many video games, just, you know, stop playing video games.
Oh,
But what happens when you tell your 17-year-old son to stop playing video games and he punches a hole through the wall? What are you
Oh, they take it out in another way.
gonna? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, most of our campers, they're overweight, they're underweight, they don't,
Oh my God.
they're incredibly angry when they come to us, they're sad. It's, the first week of camp is a little chaotic. And so regulating a lot of emotions, nobody wants to be there. So when I can get a teenager to meditate for an hour and hear them talk about the visualizations that they were able to build for themselves, when they can talk about the peace that they felt, or like the quiet that they were able to get in their head, or if they tell me they were able to use it to fall asleep at night, that's all a big deal. So none of them want to meditate the first week. They all look at me like I'm out of my mind. But then after the first week, nobody ever really complains because they're able to find the value in it. So I consider just all of that huge success.
I can imagine, being in that job of yours and seeing even one kid's life change. That must be like, I've done my job, you know.
Yeah.
I know your emphasis too on occupations and maintaining mental health is really important, but how specifically does the Restorative Therapy Project engage people in marginalized communities to rediscover themselves and the roles and activities in their life and how they can change society? You know, these questions may seem repetitive, but I want to point out that it's more of the passions and the values of the Restorative Therapy Project,
I know. Meaningful occupation is something that I learned about from my sister-in-law, who is an occupational therapist. And it's really looking at, what roles, what relationships, what activities bring you connection and meaning in your life. So I would say, look at what you're already doing, or what you were doing. So if I look at myself, I could say I'm a therapist, a teacher, a mom, a wife, a dog mom, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a business owner. I like to be a writer when I have more time one day. Like these are all of the relationships that bring my life meaning. So then I can look at each of these and think about, what do I do well in each? What are my strengths? And then I need to look at that on the flip side to see, how can I improve? So meaningful occupation it's lost when somebody's incarcerated. You aren't able to have meaningful occupation when you're not even able to have an identity. You're a number, you're a last name. Everybody tells you what to do, from like correctional staff to, the other people in your unit. And it's a missing piece in reentry. So I'm, like somebody that has just gone back out into their community. They've been a number for however many years, maybe it's been 2-3 years, maybe it's been 25-30 years. But now they're expected to be a mom, be a dad, be a son, a daughter, an employee, a productive community member. It's just unrealistic, to think about, like, how do you make that transition with nobody there to help you and know how to do it? So that's my big spiel about meaningful occupation. And, it's just a big missing piece, that I'm always trying to look at where I can fill in those gaps,
It runs in the family. I can tell. Therapy and psychology, your in-laws. I can't imagine. Okay, Calista, go ahead. I would say though, I just wanted to say, as someone working in telehealth, I think your role is just so important, in society. I can't imagine what we would do without you. I wanted to ask you, how do you ensure that therapeutic interventions learned in therapy by your job, such as meditation and relaxation, like we talked about, are practically applied by people in their day-to-day lives to promote better, self-esteem, healthier relationships? Because I know your job entails all of that, but how do you make sure that they continue doing that?
Well, I assume that nobody will do anything outside of our sessions first starting out.
Assume the worst.
Yeah, I assume nobody's going to practice outside of that. So we practice in session a lot. We do it together multiple times.
Mhm.
I model it for them. We do it together. They ask questions. We practice more. That way we can make it familiar, and then I'll give them homework assignments to complete, and I'll tell them, try this once this week and tell me how it goes. So some are better at that than others. If they're at home, I might ask them if they have somebody that can help them to be accountable or someone that can do it with them. So that might be a strategy. Usually my teenage clients do better with visuals. So we'll create something for them to keep, like a picture or a document, that they can go back and refer to. But it really comes down to, it has to be the choice on the individual, because I can't make them. And on what I'll say to that too, is that systems are very strong. So gang affiliations, family relationships, especially like the negative family relationships, they're very hard to work around, especially for a teenager. And I do see that my clients that are most successful are the ones with the stronger, the healthier family relationships.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Those are all the questions we have for you today, Shelly. But thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights and perspectives.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for.
That was so beautiful to hear about.
Yeah, no, it's a heavy topic, but it's an important one. So thank you for doing what you do to get the word out.
And I can like tell just from our conversation that you have such a big impact and you inspire people so much with your project and the camp. I literally just know from what we're talking about today. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I want to go.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, continue.
Sorry. To the listeners, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of A Second Chance Stories of Young Offenders. Until next time, remember that your story is still being written and that there's always hope for a brighter future. Stay tuned.